is bad. They say I'm defenseless against the enemy. This hand-me-down armor doesn't suit me. I've got the only weapon I need. 'Cause the giant here before me doesn't see the God behind me. If he did, he'd be on his knees. I come in the name of the one who's greater. Nobody can run his name into the ground. 'Cause the rock that I've got is a mighty Savior. And before I swing that stone and sling around, I know my Goliath is coming down. Oh, you know he's coming down.
Yes, Goliath is coming down. Absolutely. And today, business owners, my fellow citizens, this video is about major U.S. defense contractors maintain China ties despite tensions. They are Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and QA authority Daryl Guberman explains. We have some special guests. I'd also like to read you a little ditty from Igor Sikorsky, who was the founder of Sikorsky Aircraft and the designer and developer of the helicopter. The work of the individual still remains the spark that moves mankind ahead, even more than teamwork. We have some very special guests from those corporations I spoke about. And we have a very, very special guest here today, and my heart goes out to him, is Mr. Mitch Snyder from Bell Helicopter. Yes, who's behind the 8-ball, and you're going to see why. I've showed in other videos why he's behind the 8-ball. When you have Lockheed Martin, Boeing, actually Lockheed, Sikorsky, and Boeing sitting on the American National Standards Institute by corporations and federal agencies, the federal agencies that appropriate funding for the replacement Black Hawk. So I'm going to go right into this. We have Mr. James Tassett. He's the CEO of Lockheed. Lockheed, between 2015 and 21, sat on the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and at the time, they were being watched over and controlled by communist China. Yes, CCP was watching over them. Let's go a little bit back in history for you, ladies and gentlemen, who don't know this history. In 2009, Lockheed Martin gets hacked by China, taking the F-35. In 2012, a division of United Technologies Sikorsky Aircraft gets hacked by China, taking the Black Hawk T-700. We're going to show this to you. Also, you have the factor that they sit on the IAF between 2015 and 21. We tried to warn them. The letter is in here as well from Lockheed about how they recommend IAF because they sit on the IAF. So they have their hands all tidy and cozy, so to speak. Also, Lockheed sits on ANSI. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, took over complete control over the accreditation body, ANAB, that they mandate on their supplier portal. They took care of it. They took over ANAB, the American National Crediting Board, in 2018. ANSI did. And we're going to put Jim down for now. I don't know whether that's a nervous smile, because they've got a lot of defects going on under the guise of quality certification and voluntary consensus standards. The next one we have here is a Mr. Daniel Schultz. He's the president of Sikorsky Lockheed. And here he is, Sikorsky Aircraft, who got hacked in 2012, taking the Black Hawk T-700 engine and other items. In 2015, mind you, in the Connecticut Mirror, there was an article that stated, with China's okay, Lockheed Martin closes in on the purchase of Sikorsky Aircraft, and you have the 4 representation who approve and condone of communist China. while poor Christopher Wray, the FBI director, always says, beating his Chinese manufactured drum about how bad China is for America. Well, he got his data taken, Sikorsky did. And in 2015, as I told you, the article. In the Connecticut Mirror also, there's a little space that shows you without a doubt that Rosa DeLauro, Jim Himes, Christopher Murphy, and Richard Blumenthal all approved it and condoned it. It says, Connecticut lawmakers compliment Lockheed Martin for working with an international regulator. We also have Mr. David Calhoun. Mr. Calhoun of Boeing. Boy, is that a story. In 2002, Boeing wrote a procurement specification for all their AS9100 suppliers and subcontractors. AS9100, for those people who don't know that out there, is the ISO standard for aerospace. They have this procurement standard that says, you know, if you're certified, just send us your certificate. We'll accept your materials, and that's it. There's really no need for us to send you out a contingency of Boeing inspectors to ensure that they're getting an integral product. And as we've seen with the 737 MAX, also the Boeing 777 and 787, they have quality issues from such management, should you say slipshod management? Maybe we could. You have the factor that Boeing sits on ANSI's board right over by the FAA, who the FAA seceded inspection to Boeing to manufacture the 737. Well, not really manufacture. Let's go into it. To design, develop, build, and fly that aircraft. And I think what happened is the FAA signed off on it a little bit. I think so. And they also sit on ANAB's board. ANAB's board. And the both boards, the board of directors and the other board, the management board, which can grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. And they haven't done it. They haven't done a good job at all, as you can see. It is absolutely abominable because these organizations sit over by the federal agencies. Boeing sits over by the FAA, the FTC, the FBI, who investigates them. There is so much more to tell about Boeing, and also Boeing fudging documentation on their aircraft. Do you feel safe about riding in one of those aircraft? I've heard a rumor through the grapevine. If it's Boeing, don't get going. The next, and my heart goes out to him, is Mitch Snyder, President and CEO of Bell Aircraft, who actually won a very rigorous contract to replace the Black Hawk with the V-280 Valor aircraft, Tiltrotor aircraft, and my heart goes out to him because the ink really isn't dry on the contract yet. In fact, Lockheed Sikorsky has tried to open up that contract and started legal proceedings or whatever the heck it is. Just remember, Mitch, ANSI is deeply in bed with the American Bar Association, and sitting on ANSI is the Department of Justice. Let me go through a little bit of history with you, if I may. In 2013, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality. And there was a gentleman there, a Dave Levy, who was a Region 3 Deputy Director of the American Society for Quality. At the time, the American Society for Quality owned the American National Crediting Board 50%. And you also had ANSI, American National Standards Institute, who owned ANAB, the American National Crediting Board, 50%. So Dave Levy was sent there to discredit me, and he couldn't do it. So this is what he said in the speech. He said, there is no restriction on you doing business, unaccredited or accredited. And as I said before, ANAB has no problem with what you're doing. In fact, we support you, sir. So I would say support is 50% we got, correct? In 2016, we received a letter from Randy Dodry. At that time, he was the technical advisor for ANAB, and also he was the principal on the IAF, International Accreditation Forum tax report, incorporated in Delaware. He wrote us and he basically said that we can join ANAB or IAF or both if we wanted to. But we discovered back in 2015, Randy had already handed over leadership of the IAF to a communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who is also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services that certified the laboratory that may have released or could have released and probably did release the COVID virus. In the context of that letter, Randy wrote us this. But we recognize and accept. We recognize and accept that there are conformity assessment bodies and accreditation bodies such as your body and your accreditation body that are not part of the IAF and ILAC structure. The International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation are basically watched over by ANSI ANAB, who are their underwriters. We will get to that. So really, when this organization, when ANAB states, ANSI ANAB states that we only certify the system, we don't certify the product, what happens is by them taking on the responsibility of being an underwriter, they're not telling the truth. He further went on, Randy did, to say, well, my colleagues and I at ANAB can attest to the confidence, the integrity, and competence of registrars accredited by IAF member accreditation bodies. We cannot attest this for your body. Well, let me just say this. This is what he said accreditation is. I'll hold it here, and then I'll read it to you. No, let me read it to you instead. I think that will be better. Accreditation. Certification of competence in a specified subject or areas of expertise and of the integrity of an agency, firm, group, or person awarded by a duly recognized and respected accrediting organization. Let me tell you about duly recognized. You have the factor that Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, who sit on ANSI's board, it's right over by the accreditation body that they use for their subcontractors, suppliers, and sometimes themselves. I say sometimes because an IAF MLA, as you're going to see in this chart over here, an IAF MLA is considered equivalent to accreditation of ANAB. So if this accreditation body, other than ANAB, who is an IAF MLA, makes a mistake, because the ANSI ANAB are underwriters, they took on the legality of responsibility because the IAF is the organization where that accreditation body is, like the UKAS out of England. If they make a mistake in a laboratory certification and there's something happens, or a product failure, ANAB, and ANSI ANAB, because they're an underwriter, take full responsibility. You also have the factor on the IAF that you have Iran and Pakistan, who admitted to harboring some of the terrorists of 9/11, sit there as IAF MLAs, which mean that they are equivalent to ANAB. And also, you have Pakistan, who harbored Osama bin Laden. I'm not saying this about the people of those countries. I'm saying it about the politicians. We will continue on. ANSI is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation harboring federal agencies and corporations. In 2015, Randy Doherty, the vice president of ANAB, chairman of the IAF, handed over leadership to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu. He's been involved with our quality since 1994, and he's also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services. Randy, again, was the vice president of ANAB, chairman and principal on the IAF tax report. And Zhao Jinwu is mandated by his country of origin to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. You have federal agencies and corporations. In 2017, Randy Doherty was advertised on the on actually the Department of Homeland Security's website. You have a gentleman from the DHS who is getting $262,000 as a royalty payment, which it's not taxable per se from what I've gathered. They are sitting on the board. But the simple fact is think about this. This is a private company being advertised on a government agency website, which is a no-no from what I have looked into and discovered. And he was there until we opened up our mouth and spoke about that and said this is wrong. It's like Guberman PMC asking to be advertised on the FBI. It's the same situation. FBI's website. So you had an issue here. The big issue is he's on DHS, and this guy is over here, Zhao Jinwu, and he's mandated to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. What does that mean to you? That means that these agencies that sit on ANSI ANAB also sit on the IAF at the time between 2015 and 21 when this guy was the chairman. So what does that mean? It's a conduit for espionage. I would say so. Unbelievable. You have the factor that Randy Doherty talks about, the China National Accreditation Services. The IAF MLA works to facilitate global trade and vision of certified ones accepted everywhere. The IFMLA signatories are obligated to recognize other certificates accredited by other IAFMLA signatories as equivalent. So a company with an ISO 9001 or ISO 17025 for laboratory certification that is accredited by the China National Accreditation Services, the IFMLA signatory in China is equivalent to an ISO 9001 or ISO 17025 certificate accredited by ANAB. Thus, if you have failure in that lab, it goes back to ANAB because ANAB and the ANAB are underwriters. We will get to that very shortly. I think it's a very important item. You have over 10 different organizations in communist China that are accredited by ANAB that can issue an ANAB accredited certificate. ANSI and ANAB sit on the IF. They sat there between 2015 and 21 and sat there before and after now. So here you have all the agencies that sit on ANSI. Do you see the suction that's going in there? Because they sit being watched over by China. China has the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. What a mess. We discovered on a website that ANAB, ANSI, ANAB are underwriters for IAF, International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and also ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. This is what an underwriter is. I will gladly send you this. I want to try to pick this video up so it's not 30 minutes. In 2017, Zhao Jinwu, who's still the chairman of the IAF, he is still the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services, is standing in the laboratory at Wuhan, China, issuing an ISO 17025 laboratory certificate. So here you go. Now we go to dear old Mr. Fauci. Anthony Fauci was inquisitioned by Senator Rand Paul concerning gain-of-function research. The NIH, the CDC, the FDA, USDA, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson all sit harmoniously on ANSI's board, and this is what we discovered. We discovered that the United States and China went through another second workshop between May 17th and 19th, 2017, no more than in Wuhan, China. And you can see the very first item of business is gain-of-function research. We have the actual document here that calls out the whole mess between Zhao Jinwu standing up there. Here we go. Show this to you. There he is in this article. And they always save the best for last, don't they? And you will find here at the back cover, you'll find the item that I showed you of gain-of-function research in the workshop. On November 15th, 2022, Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, got up and gave a speech or got inquisitioned, I think, by Congress, and he was asked about TikTok. He said TikTok is a detriment to our society, and so is China, a detriment to the living of America. And the only problem is that poor Christopher Wray, here he is, here's his FBI. They were sitting on ANSI's board, they still are, between 2015 and 2021. As I said before, all these federal agencies have gotten their data taken. If you don't believe it, please call me, 203-556-1493, or Daryl, TQRS, at yahoo.com. That's DARYL, TQRS, at yahoo.com. And we will gladly send you all the organizations, agencies that got hacked. Here's Mr. Christopher Wray. Christopher Wray, who said that TikTok is a detriment to our world, our society. I think all the servicemen and women have gotten it taken out of their phone because our government said that TikTok, I guess they agreed with him. Except this is what he always beats on his Chinese manufactured drum every time he's inquisitioned. The whole of the Chinese society is a threat to the U.S., and that Americans must step up and defend themselves. Well, when you have Rosa DeLauro, Jim Himes, Christopher Murphy, and also Richard Blumenthal complimenting Lockheed for working with Communist China with a thumbs up, and you have the director of the FBI say, no, thumbs down for that, isn't there a little bit of inconsistency with the communication gap in our government? Lockheed Martin, 2009, gets hacked well, we have something to read to you. Very important. Here it is. We tried to warn Lockheed in 2015 concerning the whole China mess, and this is what we received back. Daryl Guberman. In order to meet our customer requirements, Lockheed Martin deals with entities that are certified through the International Accreditation Form IAF. Your company is not a register of the IAF, and therefore your accreditation is not recognized by Lockheed Martin. Yet we dug a little bit deeper, and we found out on their procedures, they've got ANSI, ANAB, or IAF. Also on Boeing's procedure, let me just say this, and here's a sample procedure. I know it's old, but it's still nevertheless calling out ANSI, ANAB. That's the way they did it over years and years and years. This has probably taken about 30 to 40 years to metastasize to where it is right now. So you've got that. We discovered that Lockheed Martin sits on the IAF. So of course they're going to push the IAF. At that time, they sat on the IAF between 2015 and 2021, being controlled and manipulated by communist China. To make things worse, here they are, sitting right over by Iran and Pakistan, and they're an associate member, which means that they can vote on policy. I guess they loved Pakistan and Iran so much that maybe they're bed partners. Who knows? Maybe they were checking out each other's missiles. This was in CNN concerning the hacking of Lockheed Martin. Another article. I'll send you all these articles if you want, business owners. Another article. And here we go. Here goes the pièce de résistance. This shows that Lockheed has quality issues. There is a video that's going to be down below about, it said that after 800 aircraft, they still have glaring quality issues. You also have United Technologies. United Technologies getting hacked in 2012. Here is the actual article that states that, but Connecticut lawmakers praise Lockheed Martin for clearing its last regulatory hurdle. And you can see who's mentioned in it. Connecticut lawmakers Rosa DeLauro, Richard Blumenthal, Christopher Murphy, Jim Himes praise our #1 military contractor, Lockheed Martin, for working with communist China. And then it says, with China's okay, Lockheed Martin to close on Sikorsky Aircraft or purchase. And let me just tell you this, business owner. Some of you are saying, well, do you have definitive proof that China took the data from both Lockheed and Sikorsky? Of course we do. And here it is. You have the Lockheed Martin, the F-35, right here. And here's a Chinese copycat of the J-31. You have the UH-60 Black Hawk, and you have the Z-20. Boeing was hacked by China. Yes, not only that, Boeing and Lockheed Sikorsky teamed up to make the Defiant SB-1. I wouldn't team them up for a dog catcher because I'm going to show you this. Boeing fudged documentation in their aircraft process. Do you feel comfortable about getting on the plane? But I know what you're saying. Daryl, you sound just like, remember Davy and Goliath, the claymation, religious cartoon that was on there, the claymation, Davy and Goliath, Goliath being the dog seemed always smarter than the Davy was. And all you hear is say, Davy. That's exactly when people say, Daryl, you're a conspiracy theorist. Here is the actual article or the procurement that stated this. On on-site Boeing survey of supplier quality system, if need be. One preference is to deal with proven suppliers and excellent quality performance and not have to do on-site quality audit or surveys, which means they just seceded the inspection that they'd send inspectors in to look at a facility to ensure their integrity. They say, here's a piece of paper, your quality looks good. You also have Raytheon. It was Raytheon United Technologies, Raytheon. They were also hacked by China. You have the FAA sitting on board. There you go, the FAA. Here's an actual list of both Boeing, you have Sikorsky on board, you have Lockheed. Look at that. You have Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon. They're all there. They're all there getting their information taken. This is from a 2012 or 13 article in the New York Times. This is why Bell Helicopter is going to have an issue. Because here you go, sitting on Being watched over by communist China is the IF affiliation between ANSI and, excuse me, between ANSI and the IF. But you also have Lockheed Martin that sat there between 2015 and 2021. You have federal agencies and corporations. They're all in bed. And one of the worst things is another reason why I say that Bell is going to have a problem, because here is the Department of Defense, the one who appropriates the money for the replacement Black Hawk. The ink on the contract for Bell isn't even dry yet, and Lockheed is trying to take them to court or whatever the heck it is. On a government contract from our government, no less. Here it goes. It actually tells you that ANSI ANAP is an underwriter for the IF, International Accreditation Form, incorporated in Delaware. At the time, 2018, when this contract was done, or the solicitation offer and award, when it was done by the Department of Defense, you have a situation that communist China was still watching over the IAF, which meant they invited China in. You know, it's a friend of mine, a dear friend, quality professional, said, Daryl, it's not cybersecurity, it's giving our data away. So really, in reality, ANSI ANAP gets, you know, their discussion on we only certify the system, not the product, is a moot point, because when you have them taking it over as an underwriter, they took full legal responsibility of the process of those products. And this is both the V80 280 Valor and the SB1 Defiant, made by Lockheed, Sikorsky, and Boeing. I wouldn't give them a contract for nothing, and as I've showed you, Boeing fudged documentation. Lockheed Martin gets another deficiency of 800 aircraft. They're still producing crap, yet the government's going to buy an aircraft like this? I hope they don't. I would stick with the V280 Valor. And let me just say something to the employees at Sikorsky. It is not that I am against you. I am for you. It's your leadership that sucks. And you know what our quality tries to do with all these terms and acronyms and all this? They do obfuscation. That is what they do. And here it is. We're going over the whole nuts and bolts, so this may end up to be, and I'm sadly to say this, this may end up to be 30 minutes long. We have a Miss Pamela Sales here, and she is the vice president of ANSI ANAB, a laboratory accreditation for both ASCLD Lab and also ANAB. ANSI ANAB own ASCLD Lab, and also you have A2LA, which I showed you in the beginning. I think, no, we're going to show it to you now. And what happened is my customers, several of them asked me if I could get them laboratory certified to ISO 17025. I said, sure. We took a look at it. It's a very good standard. You have to follow it very methodically. And this is what she said. And this is why when we look at Wuhan, China, when we look at Zhao Jinwu handing over certificate, when we look at ANSI ANAP being an underwriter for the China National Accreditation Services because they're equivalent in accreditation to ANAP, there is impropriety big time. And this is what she said. She said that one of the issues, it's right over here, one of the issues is that there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards that forensic labs, Bio-4 level labs, or phlebotomy labs around the country have to follow. I added those two laboratories because a laboratory failure is a laboratory failure. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not. So we expose the factor that A2LA sits on ANSI's board, right over by the same sheriff's departments that they accredit and they issue accreditation to, certificates. And at the time, they were sitting on the IAF as well, the International Accreditation Form, at that time between 2015 and 2021. Miss Ashley Morton wrote us from A2LA and stated underneath the video, she said that A2LA does not sit on ANSI. They are both American accreditation bodies with equal standing. There was a gentleman who called us. I'm going to play you his audio file. He was a chairman of the ANSI at the time in 2019. We took a look into this, And we discovered, I didn't even know who Russ Cheney was. And here it is. He is the chairman, okay? Unbelievable, disgusting what he said. And here's Russ Cheney right here, Russ Cheney. And to prove to you that he did call, here it is. Here's the actual snapshot of my phone. He did call. And this is what he said. That's exactly what he said. So what I did is I turned around and I wanted an apology, rightfully so. And I wrote to Joe Bathia and I sent him the audio file. He wrote to Jameson Carroll, their attorney, and it's true. This is their mission statement because this guy was the chairman at the time. So I guess he set the standard for the corporations and federal agencies that sit on their board. Here's Jameson Carroll. So I'm going to play this for you again, business owners, and let you read what he said right here.
This is Russ Cheney. Please leave a message and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Can I call you?
And that's what he said. Half a nut, fuck you. So this is their mission statement. Their mission statement is half a nut, fuck you. And there's no question about it. I asked them for an apology letter. Never received it. You have companies and corporations on board. You have federal agencies like the DHS and Department of Homeland Security on board. You have National Institute of Standards and Technology, and these organizations are getting supplemented pay from ANSI. You have corporations like Microsoft. And you also have Apple Computer on board, Tim Cook. You also have the lawyer, Andrew Updegrove, who I have to laugh. He was rated in 2004 to 2021 as a super attorney. Well, I guess a super attorney is half a nut per Russ Cheney, and he approves and condones of it as an attorney. But business owners, I applied in 2022 to go onto their board because I thought that I could change the rule of thumb here, their mission statement, as half a nut, fuck you. I put in a 54-page document. 16 of these pages were customer reference letters, talking about me. The sad part is there was a 9 questionnaire that they sent us to further answer how Darrell Guberman can bring something into ANSI and make their, not their mission statement, but facilitate ANSI's goodwill, so to speak, and what they're all about worldwide and also in this country. So I did that. Let me just say this too. When I got the package to apply for director at large, what happened is there was a letter in there congratulating me from Joe Bathia, the CEO. He had links in that letter that I'd have to go to look at their code of conduct. And I looked at it, I read it, and I know for a fact that Russ Cheney broke everything. The code of conduct that they have at ANSI should be thrown in the garbage. These guys should be fired. But, we did this. We answered the questions. We said that you're not being, small mom and pop shops are not being represented properly at ANSI, that we should be part of that so we can assist them get to talk to larger OEMs that sit there, that these small companies supply parts, most of the parts and equipment to these larger corporations. When I looked at this and I read the last page of this 9-question supplement, the committee appreciates your interest in serving in an ANSI leadership position and your willingness to provide us with this additional information. Sincerely, look who's there, Russ Cheney. Do you think he's going to pick me? Honestly, no. And we're going to go to Andrew Updegrove and also this attorney over here, Jameson Carroll. I received this from an attorney back about 2 or 3 years ago, and he told me about federal court and state court, and I want you to listen and listen good, especially you, Mitch Snyder, who Lockheed might be taking you to task to legally and all this. Just stay out of court and just go like this to them. Oh, sorry, that was my trick finger because I typed too much. Anyway, this is what this guy said, an attorney of 40 years. Nearly everything you see when litigating in any court, federal or state, is an illusion. In the political world, we call it blue smoke and mirrors. The Merriam-Webster dictionary states that smoke and mirrors as something intended to disguise or draw attention away from an often embarrassing or unpleasant issue. And I think saying half a nut fuck you is very, very, very embarrassing. That's for sure. So you have these issues. You have the issues with Boeing, you have them with Lockheed, and you have them, of course, with Raytheon, and they're all sitting on ANSI at the time between 2015 and 21, being controlled and manipulated by China. Zhao Jinwu, the head of the China National Accreditation Services, he's the chief executive, was sitting on IAF at the time between 2015 and 21. He's mandated to take their data, and I showed you through the Washington Post article about Boeing, about Raytheon, about Sikorsky having their data taken. Are you kidding me? It's absolutely disgusting. So you have blue smoke and mirrors. Mitch Snyder, we're on your side, absolutely. But I still have a gut feeling that Lockheed, because they sit by the Department of Defense, as I've showed you, because they sit there, there's definitely going to be an impropriety without a doubt. It is absolutely disgusting, and we will find out without a doubt. My telephone number is 203-556-1493, or Daryl, D-A-R-Y-L, TQRS, at yahoo.com. The reason why this video is so long is I wanted to get through and show you the transgression of this mess. Okay? I tried to get on ANSI's board to change their mission statement said by Russ Cheney. You have corporations and federal agencies that all, I guess, condone what he said. Tim Cook does. David Calhoun of Boeing must. You know, Tim Cook must condone that because he has employees sitting on ANSI's board. You have Andrew Updegrove, who's sitting there as a director at large on there, a super attorney between 2004 and 21. There's something wrong and it smells bad. And just remember that song at the beginning of this. And you know, I leave it here. I thank you.